question is going to be really, really interesting because I have been in a situation and I really felt that I really felt out of the place, and that is in a virtual meeting. Now, after COVID, virtual meets are really, really common. And it's really fine when there are two people in a virtual meet. That that is very simple, I would say. But when there are two teams in a virtual meet, and when you want to present a point, but someone else just drops in and says his point, and you are like again on mute and say like, okay, I shouldn't speak now, and you just get back, and you are like, I shouldn't speak now because it feels weird. So what would you suggest to those people who are in a virtual meet with n number of different people and they want to say something but they are little shy of sharing their opinions?
Absolutely, Aditya. So it starts with the random word exercise, right? Where that makes us uncomfortable with uncertainty. So when we go back to our companies or organizations, it becomes a lot easier for us to deal with those presentations. The other piece, though, that I'll add is now what do you do in meetings? There's three questions that I want your audience to think about. One is what's the goal, right? What's the goal of that meeting? Second question is what's the contribution? What are you actually contributing to that meeting? And number three, the most important question, how are you communicating those ideas in a way that inspires and adds value? So repeat that again. What's the goal of the meeting? Why is that meeting even happening? Number two, why are you in the meeting? Why are you in that meeting? And number three, how do we communicate your contribution in a way that inspires and adds value? So when we think about those three questions, Aditya, what we'll find is a lot of technical people, biggest mistake, they don't even think about those three questions. They just run into every single meeting because they're too focused just on coding. They're not focused on what are the priorities of the executives in that meeting. So here's what I want everyone listening to do. Pick the most important meeting this week. The one you know you need to speak in. Because there has to be one meeting you have to speak in, or else why are you working there? There has to be one. Maybe it's a development project that you're working on that you're the lead on. Maybe you're a project manager somewhere. And for that one meeting that week, prepare it. Prepare it don't do it with every meeting, you'll burn out. Do it with the one that we talked about. Most important one, 3 questions, write out your answers, and just bring that confidence into that one meeting. And just do that once a week, and that will improve your confidence over time, because most people in our field, they don't do it at all.
Interesting. I really like those 3 questions, and I'm pretty sure, uh, you know, as you mentioned, like most of the people don't even think about these 3 questions. And the one thing which you mentioned is that why are you in the meeting? Because there is an importance of yours. That's what I got from it. Because if you're not speaking, that means your opinions are not getting fully utilized for the betterment of the organization, and for the same purpose you are not going to improve because you're not sharing anything. And you're not only there in the organization for coding purposes, but you are there for certain more things as well. I mean, you are working in a team. You're not alone in any project in the company. Like, you have to work in a team, and that's really, really important. And I feel that you are adding some great value over here. But with that, I have a follow-up question. As I mentioned that in a virtual meet there are two teams, and when it comes to presenting a project, okay, and it's somehow like there is a group project everywhere, like a whole group or a whole team is working on one thing, and it happens that you have to again present a particular project as a group, as a team. So what advice would you give when there are multiple people and they all have to present on one topic, how they can present that way?
For sure, Aditya. Great question. So there's 3 parts to that. Number 1 is realize that if you're listening to this podcast, you need to be the leader of that team. And the reason I say that is because every great group has a leader. And if somebody doesn't take charge to lead, you'll lose, because you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if one of your guys screws up, then the whole presentation goes to zero. So since you're listening to this podcast, you're the leader because you have the most information. So take the time to understand what is Aditya's strength and weakness, what's Brenden's strength and weakness, and give them the easy parts to make their life easy, and you take all the hard stuff. That's advice number one. Play to your team's strengths and weaknesses and take the time to actually reflect on them. Number two, realize that when you're not speaking, you are still speaking. Let me repeat that again. Realize that when you're not speaking, you're still speaking. What does that mean? Let's say me and Aditya are giving a presentation. Aditya's talking and I'm doing this. Yeah, I'm looking at my phone. What should I do? Oh, maybe I can look at this. What impression am I giving to the audience? I'm telling the audience that, by the way, I spent 3 months working with Aditya in this presentation and I don't care what he has to say, so you shouldn't care either. So even when you're not talking, you're still talking. What does that mean? That means when Aditya is speaking, I should look at him, smile, nod my head when he says something smart. So when the audience looks at me looking at you, they go, I need to pay attention. That's number two. Realize that when you're not speaking, you're still speaking. Number three, this is my signature move. Have a clear system for Q&A. Q&A stands for questions and answers. So at the end of your presentation, if you screw up the Q&A, your whole presentation gets ruined, especially if you start contradicting each other in the Q&A. If you start to go up to your teammates and go, yeah, what that person shared was wrong, it's actually this, you're finished. You're done. So how do you do this? I got this from a team in Sweden. I thought it was really smart. It's called Q&A Master. So Q&A Master is really simple. Let's say me, you, and John are on the same team, Aditya. So me, you, and John are giving a presentation, and I'm the best at answering questions, so I'm the master. Here's what happens. Judge, audience member, person asks a question to the group, and I take all the questions. So let's say somebody goes, hey, team, what do you think about this QA testing or whatever? And then what I'll do is I'll say thanks for the question. I'll look at the team, and I'll see whose hands are in front of their body. So if Aditya's hands, if your hands are in front of the body, it means you want to answer the question. And if your hands are behind your back, it means you don't know the answer to the question. So all I do is I quickly look and I see who's got their hands and I go, Aditya, answer this one. John, answer this one. And if both hands are behind, everyone's behind, I answer the question. That's it. Q&A Master. It's super fluid. Nobody sees the hands. It's very subtle. And that's the best way to organize Q&A.